Hello and welcome to The Habit Influencer. I'm your host, TJ Walker. Thanks so much for joining us today. We're seen all over the world, live cast on 12 different platforms, including YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitch, and a whole lot of others. Wherever you are, whatever platform you're watching from, I welcome you. This is a show for you, about you. It's about how we as a community really come together and build more positive habits to lead us into fulfilling lives and eliminating bad habits that can detract from the overall quality of our lives. A lot of top interesting news stories going on in the world of personal development. I'll be covering those today. Everything from what's happening to the latest apps to monitor yourself at the Consumer Electronics Show to new research coming out of London on other aspects of personal development and sleep patterns. All of this and more, plus your questions, your comments. We'll be joined by people live on Instagram. And I see that Nasibi40 has joined us on TikTok. Always happy to see my friends on TikTok, as well as our friends on Facebook, YouTube, and a lot of other platforms. So sit back, relax, get ready for a fun show, but also feel free to participate. Your questions are addressed right here. This is not a show where everything was canned 2 years in advance and we're just pushing out the same old guru propaganda all the time. No, this is a live show. It's interactive. I've got certain things I want to share with you, but I also want to hear from you too. What topics would you like addressed? What specific habits are you trying to change and improve in your own life? We're here live January 10th, 2020. So it's not too late for New Year's resolutions. It's certainly not too late for big resolutions for the whole year. The question is, how do you make them stick? For many of us, the New Year's resolutions have already fallen by the wayside, have already been forgotten, ignored, or broken. I hope today and every day here you'll find some tips to figure out how to get them unbroken, how to get the tips back that you really want. So get ready. We are in for some fun. In Topic A today, our Topic A segment, who am I? Who is TJ Walker? Why are you listening to me talk about habits? I'll be very candid with you. I don't have a PhD in psychology. I'm not a medical doctor. I am not someone like Anthony Robbins you've seen on the international stage for decades. Who am I and why am I here? Who am I to tell you anything about habits? Well, let me tell you my journey of how I got here. For the last 30 years, I've traveled the globe helping presidents of countries, prime ministers, Nobel Peace Prize winners, Miss Universes, you name it, on one habit, and that's the habit of how to speak effectively. How to speak to the media, how to go on TV, how to go in front of a camera like this and not be scared, how to give speeches. So I helped people with this one specific habit. And it's a lot of fun. It's been a tremendous journey, going all over the world, having worked in 35 countries. And I really honed my craft in teaching people how to influence their audiences. Now, sometimes the audiences might be millions on international TV or major broadcast within a country. Other times the audience could be 1,000 people. Other times the audience could be 10, 50, maybe 3 venture capitalists. Sometimes the audience is just one other person sitting across the room from you or from a table. So I have a lifetime of experience teaching people how to influence audiences. And then one day, really only a couple of years ago, I sat back and reflected and thought, what's the most important audience of all? If you could influence any one person to have the biggest impact on your career, you might at first blush think, well, it's getting this investor, this huge investor, this angel investor to give me $1 million. You may think it's this one person to hire me at Goldman Sachs. And certainly influencing someone like that can have a big impact on your career and your life. But there's someone else where if you could influence this person, it would have an even bigger impact. I'm talking about yourself. If you could just influence yourself, if you could speak to yourself in a way where you truly influence the actions you take, that would be the ultimate. That would be the ultimate way of making you successful, aligning your goals with your daily activities in a way that success is, if not guaranteed, at least the odds are dramatically improved. So I asked myself, how can I help people influence themselves? Now, I've been a student of personal development my whole life and read all the, How to Win Friends and Influence People, the Anthony Robbins books over the decades, Ben Franklin's memoirs. I read all that. I went back and reread all that in the last couple of years. And what I concluded is there are a lot of great books on personal development to help people. There are also a lot of great seminars to help people. And I've been to the Anthony Robbins 3-day workshop, and you walk on coals. Fabulous experience, wonderful. I'm not saying anything negative about those. But then I asked myself, are these books truly influencing individuals? Is it truly having an impact on people's lives, the habits they follow through on a daily basis? Are they really affecting my own habits? And I had to be candid with myself and just realizing other people I've worked with didn't seem to be. And there's a lot of different techniques out there. There's NLP, there's hypnosis, there's psychotherapy. We all know, Woody Allen's gone to see a psychiatrist every week for 60 years. Has it made a big impact? There are drugs that help people. There is psychotherapy. There is something called tapping. There's self-hypnosis. There are so many tools out there to help people influence themselves. What's really working? What has the biggest impact? And I started looking at the numbers, and there's $1 billion or so spent on personal development books and products and tapes each year. There are many billions of dollars that are talking about what's really happening and with psychotherapy and drugs. There's so many different things happening. But do any of them truly have an impact? And I looked around more broadly. What truly did have an impact that you could measure? Now, my friends who are psychotherapists will say, hey, the great thing about psychotherapy, wonderful business model. You get a customer, comes back and pays every week forever. That's good for psychotherapists, and I'm not maligning that profession. But it doesn't really mean that there's evidence it works. What is it that changes people's actions, that influences people's actions the most? It's not books. It's not workshops. It's not seminars. It's not NLP. It's not hypnosis. It's not psychotherapy. When I looked around, I found something else. And that's what I'm going to tell you in part 2 in just a moment. Okay, I wanted to give a special shout out and hello to our friends joining us on TikTok. Nesbit40 is with us. HDRG is with us. Noe Drone has joined. Also, Unorthodox Genius is with us. Thanks for being with us today. Peter is with us on Instagram. We have some of our friends on Facebook as well as YouTube. So thank you so much for joining us. And by the way, periodically you'll hear me talking to Marceau, and you may be looking around. I don't see any Marceau. Marceau is my producer and all around Mr. Fix-It for everything. So he's working with me today and every day on this show, but he's in another location. He's working out of Brooklyn. I'm in New York, Long Island, about 30 miles east of New York City. So you'll hear me occasionally making some notes to him. So Marceau, I need you to mark the notes of when I start a segment. I think we counted that one at the top of the hour because I had some other preliminary information. So I need you to give me a marking based on...
Yeah, you're about to go into your second 10 minutes.
Yeah, so I need you to restart the clock. As soon as I say, segment B, then you'll give me a marker. That's when the countdown starts. Because I think the part where I was talking about the main topic was only about 6 or 7 minutes before you gave me the nut. For those of you watching, here's what we're trying to do. We're trying to do something innovative here. And we're trying to be respectful of all various media platforms. So we're here doing a live show with you today, and you're frankly most important. But we're also using segments of this show and editing it down to 7 to 10 minute video clips for YouTube and Facebook and LinkedIn and other platforms. So I'm trying to do certain segments in less than 10 minutes. Because once you go over 10 minutes, the video is no good for LinkedIn because LinkedIn has a time limit. So periodically you may hear us talking about some things that don't seem that interesting to you. We'll try to keep that to a limit. By the way, we are just here. This is our first week. This is our maiden week. If we were a Broadway show, you would say we are in our preview mode. But we are doing this for real, seriously, being broadcast all over the world. And I want to thank you for joining me, whether you're watching this live today or on demand. And realize if it's live, go ahead and post questions, comments. I'm here for you. And if you're watching this on demand, if you post questions or comments, chances are I'll see it and I'll answer it the very next day we do a show. This show is typically done Monday through Friday, 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern Time, other than holidays or when I'm traveling or off giving a speech or a workshop. Special hello to our friends joining us on Facebook. Haron Joseph has joined us. Hello, Haron. Thanks for stopping by. Please let us know if you have any particular questions or comments. We have a few more people joining us on TikTok. Dancy DeForesta has joined us. Dancy, thank you for stopping by. And Peter Vinod with us on Instagram. Again, regardless of what platform you're on, I do want you to know this is interactive. This is live. This isn't just a canned, sometimes you can go someplace and it says it's a live stream and it's some minister just reusing an old video from 10 years ago and they're just pushing a button. No, this is live. We're here and it is Friday, January 10th, 2020. And I also want to say hello to our friends on YouTube. Ridham Prajapati has joined us. Says, hey, back to you. Please let us know where you're watching from, whether you're in Delhi or Denver, whatever city you're in around the world. Always nice to hear. We have a huge international audience here, as you would anticipate from any live stream. I do know that when it comes to my online students, for my personal development courses in media training, goal setting, time management, productivity, I have students in every single country in the world except for, I think, North Korea. And I'm not sure we have anyone from the Vatican yet. But beyond that, there are students in every single country and viewers in every single country too. So in a moment, I'm going to continue where I was, telling you a little more about me, trying to give you some reason as to why you should even pay attention to me or watch, and a little more about my background. So, Marceau, I am going to ask you to kind of reset the clock after I say segment B, and then we'll try to keep it under 9 minutes.
Okay.
So, segment B, part 2 of Who in the World Am I, and why should you listen to me when it comes to habits, habit formation, personal development in a way to improve yourself. Here's what I found in researching all the other ways of influencing people, whether it is NLP, which some people get good results from, so-called tapping therapy, hypnosis, reading books, attending workshops, is if you study them long enough, very few of them can prove long-term results. And you can always find some study of 5 Harvard freshmen who did a particular study, and 6 weeks later, this change happened. But what is it that truly works long-term? So I decided to broaden my view of who's really influencing people in the world. Certainly, self-help authors are trying to, ministers are trying to, every salesperson is trying to. I expanded my research, and I finally came up with something that was staring me in the face the whole time. It's so big, it's the proverbial 800-pound elephant in the room no one ever talks about. I'm talking about advertising. You may think, well, TJ, that's completely different. What does that have to do with personal development? Well, let me ask you. If you had a Coke in the last year or week or month, why do you drink a Coke? It doesn't quench thirst any better than water. It's not more nutritious than milk. Doesn't taste better than fresh mango juice. Why would you or I drink Coke? And I don't drink a lot of Coke, but I've probably had one in the last year. Why do we drink Coke? I would argue it's because from the second we were born, virtually the first week going home from the hospital, you saw Coke ads. Until the day you die, you and I are bombarded with advertisements for Coca-Cola. It's TV ads, it's radio ads, it's internet ads, it's billboards, it's the logo at every restaurant. It's built into glasses and bottles. We are bombarded with advertising. Now, if you look at the traditional metrics of advertising, just paid TV ads, radio ads, billboards, and look at the amount of money spent on that versus other types of personal development attempts to influence people, it is bizarrely out of whack. I mean, there's maybe $1 billion spent on self-help books, motivational tapes, stuff like that. Maybe 10 billion or so on other therapies, hypnosis. If you add all those things together, you can even put yoga as another category. All of that is basically insignificant when you compare it to the pile of money that is spent on advertising. Because then it's not $1 billion here, $1 billion there. It's $500 billion spent on advertising worldwide, all with the intent on influencing your behavior. Why do you drink a Coke? Because you've been conditioned and marketed to and advertised to your whole life to drink a Coke. Why do we eat McDonald's hamburgers or Kentucky Fried Chicken? It's because we have been bombarded with advertising all day long for days, weeks, months, years, decades, lifetime. Now, people always want to ask about the source of my research and everyone else's research, and I think research is important. But the big flaw with most personal development sources and most personal development techniques is they're typically short-term and they're small samples. You don't really know what works long-term. There's one institution in the world that does actually study influence efficacy over the long term. It's called the advertising world. McDonald's, Coca-Cola, Apple, these corporations spend so many billions of dollars collectively over any decade. They measure what works. They know what works. They double down on it. They do more and more of that advertising until it stops working. So, to me, it's patently obvious. If you want to know what is the single most powerful way of influencing human behavior in the history of the world, it is advertising, and I would include cousins to advertising, which are other electronic notifications. When you get a notification from Netflix on your cell phone saying, oh, you watch this movie, you'll probably like that one. That's a type of advertising. Now, they're not buying the ad from a TV network, but it's essentially a big corporation creating messages and pushing them to you. So advertising is profoundly, profoundly influential. I would argue the biggest influence in the entire world on human behavior. So what do we do with it? Find out next in part 3. I'm TJ Walker. I want to thank you for spending some time with me on this Friday. And occasionally in this show, I will do monologues. Today's show is a little bit different. I'm kind of laying out some foundational information, just so you know, other people know if they want to go back and see the beginning of this whole show, which I hope will be around for the next 30 years. They'll see some of my founding premises of who am I, why did I start this, how did I get here. And by the way, nice to see Ahmed is with us from Somalia. Great. I've not been to Somalia, but I have been to Senegal and Kenya. Those are the closest countries, and Egypt. Those are the closest countries I've been to you. I am pleasantly surprised. I get positive feedback from online students of mine based in Somalia every so often. So happy to hear from our friends in Somalia today. Nat Dicko is writing from KSA, and I know we're talking about the country in the Middle East, and my mind just went blank on it. If you could tell us where that is, because a lot of people in the United States might see KSA and say, is that Kansas? So now if you could write down what city and what country and spell it out for us, and forgive my ignorance, most of you probably already know what the KSA stands for. Also like to say hello to our friend Bob Carl Legend, joining us on Instagram. Again, you were with us yesterday. Thanks, and bonjour to you as well today. Remco's with us again, one of our regulars. Thanks, good to hear from you. Also, I think it's Lifchi Baby has joined us on TikTok. Rebecca has joined us as well. Always interesting to see the different types of names people create and their personas on different social media platforms. Some very simple, descriptive, which is what mine is in most places. If I can't just get TJ Walker, I have something simple like TJ Walker Training on TikTok. Saudi Arabia. Okay, that's what KSA stands for. I do talk to friends and clients and prospects in Riyadh frequently. And many times I've been on and I should know, I've been on the KSA TV networks dozens and dozens of times opining on American political events. So always good to hear from folks in Saudi Arabia. Thanks so much for joining us. And let's see who else do it. Yes, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. That's what the K stands for. So well represented in the Middle East and Africa today. I believe we have a few listeners and viewers from India. And I think we have a few, I saw Peggy, we have a few from the United States here as well. So a special hello to our whole international audience. Again, today's show is a little bit different. It's the end of our first week, and thank you so much for being a part of this first full week of the TJ Walker Habit Influencer Show. It is certainly my goal to do this show for the next 30 years because, frankly, I want to keep learning from you. I want a community to grow. And together, we can improve our habits on a regular basis. Continue to grow, continue to learn, and continue to improve. That's really what it's all about. Okay, we're going to go to topic 3, topic C, which will be our third topic. I'll ask Marceau to kind of start the clock again, and that way I won't go past my own self-imposed 10-minute limit. Topic 3. So, what is the most effective form of advertising? The most effective form of advertising on most people is the ones that are the most repetitive. When you see an ad again and again and again, that's what has impact. Many people way back in the day heard so many ads for Excedrin PM that it was just pounded into their brain. They had a headache, they had to get Excedrin PM. That's an old brand people don't talk about much anymore. Coke, it's the real thing. People have heard that for so long. It just got comfortable saying Coke is the real thing. I'll take a Coke. I don't want the Pepsi. I mean, you may love Pepsi and so you don't drink Coke, but chances are you're going to drink one of those two if you drink any cola at all. So it is the repetition, the pounding away, the pounding away. So if you could figure out a way to give advertising to yourself, for example, to stop biting your nails, if that's a problem, If you could repeat that message in an easy enough way, a simple enough way, and in a repetitive enough way, often enough, forever, you would be able to influence your brain. You would be able to ultimately influence your actions. This is what I observed just empirically around the world. And to me, it's self-evident advertising works, because if you think advertising doesn't work, you have to tell yourself, why are major corporations spending billions and billions of dollars, $500 billion a year, and it doesn't work? Are they doing it out of the goodness of their heart? Do you really think their shareholders would tolerate that if there were no proven demonstrations of effectiveness? Now, advertising works, and it's never been easier to figure out what doesn't work, so you stop spending money on that and you start spending more money on what does work. So to me, of all the ways of influencing people, advertising is most effective. So then I asked myself, what is a form of advertising that normal people could do? There are billboard ads all over the place, but I can't make a billboard. That's expensive. I don't know how to make a billboard. That doesn't work. There are full-page newspaper ads and magazine ads. And I don't know how to do that. I can't do layout, graphics, big pic. I don't know how to do that. There are television ads all over the world, but they're slick, they're professionally produced, videographers, models, great lighting. I don't know how to make a TV ad. It sounds difficult, time-consuming, expensive. So I figured that model wouldn't really work on an individual basis. Then I thought about radio. Radio is not as prestigious as traditional print media, the New York Times, the London Times, or their online counterparts. It's not as powerful and as glamorous as broadcast TV and videos on Netflix. But radio is powerful. Hundreds of millions of dollars a year spent on radio advertising, audio ads, podcast ads these days. So audio is extremely powerful. But here's the thing about audio. You don't have to have a video camera. You don't have to know how to edit video. You don't have to have an art director. You don't have to be able to take great pictures. Radio ads, just audio. Now, some radio ads have singing and jingles and all sorts of fancy stuff in production, but some radio ads just have an individual speaking, a simple voice. This is what put a light bulb over my head. I'm thinking, wow, if Coca-Cola, McDonald's, Apple, the largest corporations in the world who influence us are using radio ads, why not help individuals use radio ads for themselves? Now, traditionally, the reason that would not work is because you'd have to go book a TV or a radio studio, hire a voiceover announcer, write scripts, hire editors. I mean, you could spend $50,000 producing a radio ad if you wanted to. But here's what's different. Now that we all have cell phones, we have mini audio production studios. Now, you could make video as well, I realize that, but the beauty of audio is it's 1,000 times easier than video, number one. All you have to do is talk to your phone. That's what makes it easier too, because we all have a lifetime of experience of talking on a phone. So if you go to your phone and just hit the audio record function, you can make a memo record, and speak to yourself. It's a radio ad. If you don't like the metaphor of radio, think of it as a podcast. Make a podcast for yourself. So it occurred to me that really every human being on the earth who owns a cell phone, I realize not everyone does. 800 million people across the world live on $1.60 a day or less. They don't have smartphones. But for the wealthiest 90% of the world, a huge percentage of people do have smartphones. Therefore, they have their own audio production facility available to them. So we now have this ability to make audio commercials for ourselves. This, to me, was a huge breakthrough, this revelation. Thinking, I don't have to just passively listen to radio ads and podcast ads and have stuff thrown at me. I can essentially create my own ads that I'm going to hear repeatedly. And that's a big breakthrough moment for me. Once I realized that, I decided, let me test on, before I tell anyone else, let me test on it. So I made a little advertisement for myself. I just talked to myself about the type of habits I wanted to have. I said, TJ, you are a healthy eater. You love to eat fresh vegetables and fruit every single day. You can't stand to snack. You don't like to snack. You hate sugar. You don't put sugar in your coffee. You drink your coffee without sugar. I just told myself in a conversational way what I wanted to be, how I wanted to live my life, not just for health, but what I wanted to do as far as practices. I told myself, TJ, you don't watch cable TV news anymore. You read at least one book a day. You write at least 500 words a day. So I basically scripted my version of the life I wanted. And when I say scripted, I mean I just had a piece of paper and wrote a few notes, and I recorded it on a cell phone. And I talked it out, and then I listened to it every day. I figured, that's easy. I'm a lazy person, but I can hit a button that says play every day, and while I'm eating breakfast or reading the news or something, I'm hearing this audio recording. Now, even today, it's only about 20 minutes long. You might start with one that's 30 seconds long. But I'm listening to this radio ad. Now, if you say it out once, frankly, it has no impact. If you listen to it once, almost no impact. If you listen to it every day for a week, almost no impact. But if you listen to it every day for week after week and then a few months go by, it changes your life. It influences you. That's how the human brain works. It is a function of repetition of what it hears. I heard myself tell myself that I eat 3 meals a day and I don't snack. I heard myself tell myself that I like to exercise every day. And guess what? It worked. In less than a year, I lost 35 pounds. In a moment, I'll tell you why that's significant for you. Okay, we're going to take just a short little break there. Marceau, hope I didn't go too long there. Special hello to a few other friends who've joined us. Hi, Swift One has joined us, says, keep hammering. I hope that means you like what I'm saying and you want me to keep hammering on these themes of improving your habits. Ryan Covey has joined us as well, plus Osman Mar61. And those of you on TikTok, please let me know where you're from. TikTok has these analytics. They're telling me that most of my audience for TikTok is based in the US, whereas my audience for places like Udemy, 80% are from different countries outside of the United States. So I'm interested in knowing, and TikTok, a company based in China, so I'm not quite sure if and why my audience really is based in the United States. So those of you, my friends watching on TikTok, please just let me know what country you're in. Also, special hello to our friends tuning in on Instagram. I see that Sai MBA has joined us. Sai writes that he or she is from India. Started my career as a trainer, but my manager said to create new content with your creativity, but don't use any book material. How can I create my own content, sir? Oh, a topic near and dear to my heart. And so I hope I won't just tell you how to create content. I hope I'm demonstrating how to create content, because that is in fact what I'm doing now, creating content for this live stream, but we're also going to be reusing sections of this content for 1-minute videos to be placed on Instagram and 7 to 10-minute videos to be placed on Facebook and YouTube and LinkedIn. So we're going to spend a fair amount of time on that topic, because I do think the sheer act of being a creator of content basically forces you into dozens of other positive daily habits in your life. So to me, the act of creation, the act of being a content creator is a huge anchor habit. And it's virtually impossible to be a good, consistent, reliable content creator without having dozens of other good habits sink in. Marceau, did we have any other friends we want to say hello to on YouTube, Facebook, or any other platform before I get too far into this?
No, not right now.
Great.
It's the same people.
Okay, good. And we're very happy to have regulars, and certainly happy to see Peggy back and Remco and many of our other regulars. So right now we're going to hop into this next segment. So if you can get the countdown clock ready, Marceau, and let me know if I go past the 10-minute mark for that. Okay?
I got you.
Okay. Next segment. So what does this all mean when it comes to advertising? It means that you have the power to brainwash yourself. And I mean that in a positive way. If you have power over your own brain, then it means you're in control of your own life, not the people at McDonald's, not the marketers at Kentucky Fried Chicken, not the head of advertising at Amazon. But no, you are in charge of your own life. That's the big revelation to me. It all comes down to, can you create an advertisement that tells you how you want to live your own life? Because with any behavior, you have to look at, is there ability to do it? Is there an expense involved? Are there other impediments? And when it comes to you or me making a simple audio recording on our cell phone, it costs nothing. So there's no financial requirement. As long as you have a voice that can be heard and you haven't had your tongue removed or your vocal cords removed, there's nothing technically or that involves skill that prevents you from doing it. So why doesn't everyone do it? For me, it was easy to record my own voice, telling myself how I want to live my life, telling myself exactly what habits I want to have. But I realize I'm a bit of an odd duck. I'm someone who gets nervous and uncomfortable if I'm not giving a speech in a certain day. That's the opposite of most people. I like speaking. I like talking. I guess if I'm totally self-aware, this sounds awful to say, but I guess you could say I like the sound of my own voice. Those people hate the sound of their own voice. I'm not one of those. And I've hosted thousands of talk radio shows and TV shows for 30, 40 years. So I'm atypical. So it was relatively easy for me to pick up my phone, experiment, and test this out. Now, I did it enough and experimented with different habits where I could see it wasn't always the first day or the first week, but pretty much every single time I told myself about a habit I wanted to have, whether it happened in a week or 2 weeks, within a month, I had adopted that habit and was doing it on a daily basis. It might not be subconscious yet. I used this to convince myself to drink a large glass of water every day as soon as I get up. I don't know if medically that's essential. There's a lot of hype around water and controversy, but I figured if I'm filling myself with a big glass of water, it couldn't hurt. If nothing else, it displaces a second cup of coffee I might otherwise want. But by telling myself in an audio every single day, TJ, you're going to start every day drinking a large glass of water, it has become a habit. I still think about it, but hearing myself every single day tell myself, TJ, you're going to drink a big glass of water, has turned that into something I do daily. Now, I also make a little checklist just on my phone in the memo section. So I decided, let me put a name to this, and that's why I came up with this idea of, well, everyone takes selfie pictures of themselves all day long. You go to the Eiffel Tower or the Statue of, you go anywhere, and it's hard to even see the thing because so many people are taking selfies of themselves. So people love taking selfies of their image. I thought, why not think of this as taking a selfie of your own voice, of yourself speaking. So that's why I came up with this concept of the Selfie Speak program. You're creating an audio program where you tell yourself the habits you want, exactly how you want to live your life. And I came up with that name, the Selfie Speak program. And that's what I did for myself, tested it, didn't want to waste anyone's time if it didn't work. I found that it worked for me. I then created a dozen or so courses on the Udemy platform, udemy.com. And these were personal development courses helping people with time management, productivity, personal development, transformation, finding life purpose, even on how to have habits decluttering your own home and your own office. All using this unique Selfie Speak programming technique. And I have to tell you, I've been overwhelmed with how positive the responses have been from students. Now, I have about 1 million student enrollments all over the world from various platforms in more than 140 personal development courses, many of those on public speaking and media training. But in just the last year, I've got at least 50,000 students enrolled in my courses that use this system of Selfie Speak programming, the SSP. And now I'm trying to take it to the next level. So that's why I'm here with you today. I am using this show as a way to evangelize. Sorry if that word offends anyone. I don't mean it in any religious sense. But I am trying to evangelize what I think is the absolute easiest way for human beings to improve themselves, improve their own habits, to really figure out how can they take control of their own lives. And I think now is especially important because in the last 12, 14 years since the advent of the smartphone, our brains are under attack. We live in an attention economy where everyone is trying to grab attention from us. Everyone is going after our eyeballs and our ears, whether it is iTunes, whether it's Amazon, whether it's Apple, whether it's Microsoft, whether it's Google, YouTube. Everyone, all these internet billionaires, they're all rich because they've grabbed our attention. And they've manipulated our behavior to spend at least some time doing this all day, playing a video game, which makes them rich, typically not you or me, watching their movies on Netflix, which makes them rich. Everyone in the world who's a billionaire these days, or a huge percentage of them, have gotten that way because they figured out a way to grab your attention, to influence you. I want to help you have some power to take back what's yours, your own attention. So that's why I'm here today. That's why I'm here every day. And that's how I'm hoping to make an impact. Certainly there's a lot of things, basic concepts in the personal development space, in the habit space, that I think is good information, and I'm happy to share that with you. And it isn't mine. I mean, I certainly recommend you read James Clear's Atomic Habits, Charles Duhigg, The Power of Habit, another great book, the New York Times columnist and journalist. There are a lot of great books out there. I do think that I have something to add to that. And it is through this process of the Selfie Speak program. Now, my own unique niche that helps this is my background as a public speaking trainer has helped me coach my students get comfortable with the idea of recording their own voice and listening to it. Most people, even if they have a great voice, can't stand the sound of their own voice. So most people will never even record their own voice the first time. Therefore, they can never benefit from SSPs. Now, you could just listen to a voiceover for me, but the real value is when it's your own voice. But I have techniques, and I go through all this in my courses, and I'll be doing this on this show as well, where I teach you how to get comfortable recording your own voice and listening to your own voice. Because once you do that, it opens such a huge world of potential for you. You can take control of your own life. You can program your whole life. You can live the life you want. You can have the habits you need to give you the successes you want to lead to ultimate fulfillment in life. That is my wish for you. That's why I'm here. I'm TJ Walker. Okay, thanks a lot for listening to that. So again, this day was a little bit different from some of our other shows. Marceau, did you have a thought there? I'm hearing you just obliquely. Anyway,
No, I didn't have any.
okay, I just heard some sound coming in.
Oh, no, that was sorry. That was
Okay. So most of our show is not going to be giving monologues. It's going to be interactive. You get to have a say-so. You can toss out your questions, your comments, your disagreements. This is going to be a give and take. This is going to be a community. But I did kind of want to lay down for you, and we'll use these as sort of core videos later on, presumably when people want to come in and learn more about the show, where it started. They'll kind of see, where was my head when this whole thing started? I hope we're all still here together 30, 40 years from now, continuing to get better, continuing to improve our habits. Let's check in with some of our other friends. Fortune Tribes has joined us. Always happy to hear from you. You're one of the best participants and on Instagram, and great post yourself. Vahid Mabadi Jr. has joined us. Let me scroll up. I think I missed a couple of comments. And so, Sai, I am going to get to you about how do you specifically create content. You mentioned you're working in soft skills. How do you create more content? That is absolutely important. Now, you have a question posted about 2 different careers as a trainer and HR. Which one can I choose? I'm interested in both careers, training and HR. Let me be totally candid with you. I'm not an expert on human resources, HR. In many companies, the human resources director is second only to the CEO, because the corporations realize all they really have are their people, and if they don't have the best people in the world, they're worthless. So in some companies, head of HR is highly paid, highly respected, and second only to the CEO. In other companies, HR is considered the dumping ground. They're just a cost. So it really varies depending on the culture. Training is something I know a lot about. And forgive me for seeming self-serving, but I do have, I believe, the longest, most thorough, comprehensive course in the world online on training, a Train the Trainers program. You can find that on Udemy and a lot of other platforms. I am going to answer your question in a lot more detail. If we don't get to it all, say, this hour, we certainly will get to it in hour 2. But first, I wanted to say hello to a couple of our friends joining us on Facebook. We have Clarence joining us. I'm Pastor Clarence from Kenya. I'm building a church and I need you to support me. Well, Clarence, the way I can support you is the way I support everyone. I give people tools that they can use to have better habits to help them get to their goals. Look at anyone you aspire. I mean, if I'm going to give you a religious reference, you may not like this person at all, but I'm not talking about their theology. There is a pastor in the United States by the name of Joel Osteen, and he has, to my knowledge, the absolute largest audience in the world on television worldwide. And he also has a church where every single week, 25,000 people show up in person. Again, you can say his theology is fluff and he's never, he has, I think, 1.5 years of college. He has no theology degree. If that matters to you, I couldn't care less, but it matters to some. He's a great public speaker. He has a message that resonates because every single sermon is interesting. He always tells a story. There's always a setting. There's dialogue. There's a lesson from it. Those are all principles I teach in my public speaking courses and online storytelling courses, which many pastors have taken over the years. You may want to check those out. So that's, I think, the primary way that I can help you and anyone in your organization, and is how I help people in all sorts of organizations, whether they are religious, whether they are secular, whether they are promoting one particular deity or promoting the belief that there is no such thing as deity. I help empower people and help them have the habits they need to communicate more effectively. And Marceau, did we have one other comment on Facebook? I feel like there was something there that I missed, and I didn't want to. I didn't want to slight any of our new friends. Honeylove showed up. Again, that's a nice name. My dog, not calling you a dog, sorry for the segue, but my dog growing up was Honey. We called my dog Honey Walker, and was my first real pet. Was half Welsh Corgi and half about 5 other things, but a loved addition to my family growing up. So, Honey, thanks for joining us, Clarence, Peggy, all of our friends on Facebook today. By the way, if you're on Facebook and you are a follower of me just as an individual, I would beg you if you could also follow my business page, my official fan page, which is TJ Walker Speak to Influence is the URL. TJ Walker. It's facebook.com/TJ Walker Speak to Influence. If you could follow that page, you'll get a lot more tips, bonuses, free passes to my latest courses, things like that. Now, we're about to lose our friends on Instagram because they automatically shut us down at the end of every hour, and we started a couple of minutes before. So if I lose you, realize it'll just be a minute or two. We'll reconnect. At the top of the hour, we do, in fact, take a 2-minute break here at the show. So if we lose you, there may be about a 5-minute gap before you see anything, but please do come back. But Si, I wanted to answer your question about how do you create more content. First and foremost, you need to absorb more content. The best creators, I don't care if you are a novelist, I don't care if you are a musician, you are absorbing stuff in your field. The greatest musicians listen to music all day long. The greatest novelists read novels all day long when they're not actually writing. So a lot of people are bad content creators because they have stopped the basic input, the first step of the process. You have to be consuming a lot of content in your genre before you can create. Now, I think I've come up with a number of interesting insights today. I think my SSP concept is interesting and useful. But I read at least 100 personal development books last year before I came up with that idea. So you've got to read. I prefer to read books. You might prefer to listen to podcasts, watch YouTube videos, watch live streams like this one, I hope. But if you want to become a great trainer, then you need to absorb new content every single day. The second step, you need to create something every day. I think you should start by writing, because once you've written something, you can turn that into a video, an audio, a book, anything else, even if it's just one sentence. Probably something I did that had the biggest impact on my career as a media trainer and a presentation coach, a little less than 20 years ago, I just decided I'm going to write one idea related to public speaking or media training 7 days a week. It might only be 5 sentences, but it's going to be one idea, one tip. And I did that every day for several years. I then switched to making videos every day. And even today, I try to write 500 words about personal development issues, habit issues, every single day. And then, Si, my next big tip for you, put it out there. A lot of people write stuff, create stuff, and it just sits in their computer, worthless. Put it out there and see what happens. I beg you, Si, create a Udemy course today, put it up there, and if everybody laughs at it, you've learned something. I am one of the best-selling Udemy instructors in the world, but I'm also one of the worst-selling Udemy instructors in the world, because I have 144 courses, and some of them I've only made $5 from. But you know what? I've learned from every single course I made. Most people never become good content creators because they just don't create enough content. So quantity and quality are related. Just because you have quantity doesn't make quality, but if you do enough quantity over time, you can refine it and you will find your quality. So, Sai, that is my number one tip for you. You've got to start creating content every single day and putting it out to the world, getting feedback, even if it's criticism. So I'm glad you brought up that topic. We will be addressing it a great deal here because I see it as such a cornerstone habit, this habit of creating on a daily basis. But first, before we end the hour and break for the top of the hour break, let's go to Facebook and see who else has joined us there. On Facebook, I see that Syed has joined, and Evangelist Wags Mashil has joined, and Pavel has commented, TJ, you are the best. Well, that's a comment. Marcel, you can star those and put those to the head of the list. We like comments like that. You are someone I aspire to be more like. Well, thank you, Pavel. Let's use this as a learning moment rather than just me basking in the glory. I appreciate the comments, but a lot of times in life we see someone and we think, oh, that person, they've got their stuff together. They're doing well. Boy, they got it easy. And truthfully, I have had an easy life compared to most people in the world. But still, if you want a life like mine, or if you want a life like anyone you see and you aspire to them, the whole key is to figure out what are they doing on a daily basis to get them to where they are. What were they doing 5 years ago before they're doing this thing that you think is great and wonderful? If you want to be like me, let me tell you, just talking here, seeming somewhat coherent and articulate, is a tiny bit of the process. My day started at 5 a.m. I woke up and I wrote 2,000 words. I read a book. I listened to another audio book. I did meditation. I've already done exercise. I do all those things before most people have gotten up. Now, I do want to stress, I didn't get up at 5 because I had the alarm go off. I just woke up at 5. If I'd woken up at 5:30, I would have started then. But my point is, my day has a tremendous amount of routine in it. I try to read at least one full book a day. Sometimes it's a digital book and part of a paper book, and I listen to a digital audio book. But I'm consuming myself with intellectual enrichment. I read dozens of news stories about personal development and habits every single day. So that's how I'm able to create. That's how I'm able to stand here and speak to you in a somewhat coherent, articulate way for a couple of hours without having to have someone write a script the whole time or do anything like that. We have signed off to our friends on Instagram, and thanks so much. We will be coming right back to them at the top of the hour. We're going to be taking a break here at 2 o'clock Eastern Time, which is just a minute from now. So if we didn't get to your questions yet, we have all of hour 2. I've purposely left it relatively unstructured, although there are a lot of top news stories I want to talk about, including the one habit Meghan Markle is still trying to break. I'm TJ Walker. More to come. See you after the top of the hour. See you in a couple of minutes.
This is a Chucky Beat production.
What is the one habit that Princess Meghan Markle wants to get rid of, that she's embarrassed about? We'll go over that in just a minute here on hour 2 of the TJ Walker Show, Habit Influencer. Thanks so much for joining me. Now, we're not usually that pop culture, cheesy, gimmicky, but I couldn't resist. It is Friday afternoon, so I couldn't resist a little pop culture reference talking about someone who's in the news constantly. Personally, I'm not particularly interested in the royal family or any royal family, but having lived in the democracy in the United States the last few years, monarchy is looking better and better all the time. Let's just leave it at that. We're not going to talk about politics here on this show. Before we talk about Meghan Markle, though, let's first go to our friends on Facebook. And Marceau, I believe we had another comment or question. And Bebs Baholist joined us. Raul
It's on Facebook.
Raul has joined us as well. And Marceau, I didn't hear what you said. Oh, Pavel wrote,
Comment is on Facebook.
Pavel on Facebook wrote, do you have a course on how to create a course? I wonder what are the mistakes you learned over the years. Yes, I actually have 3 different courses on how to create online courses. So I would recommend that you can go to udemy.com and just type my name in and plus online courses. I'll try to post a link to them after the show as well. But there are a number of courses on how to create online courses with my name attached on the platform Udemy. Now, I have this course on a lot of other platforms, and you can always go to my main home website, mediatrainingworldwide.com, and see that course as well. But being an online instructor is completely different from being an instructor in the real world. I know plenty of real-world instructors who teach people face-to-face, as I've done for many, many years. They try to go to online, complete failure. And I was guilty of making the same mistakes. I tried to do exactly what I did in the real world and shove it in a box and record it and put it online. It doesn't work that way. I also know some people who are wildly successful in the online world. Some of them make millions. They've never trained someone in the real world face-to-face. And that's not a criticism. It's just not the world they started in, and they've learned how to thrive in the online world. Now, you've heard Anthony Robbins say this. You've heard Jim Rohn say this if you follow Anthony Robbins' mentor. But if you want to be successful, success leaves clues. You look at what successful people did before. So if you want to be a successful online trainer or instructor or a coach, my recommendation is to do what I did the second time. The first time I just did it my own way and it was miserable and I didn't make any money. But when I really got serious about online training, I took the course of every other successful online trainer who talked about how to be an online instructor. I took every single one of them. And most of these platforms, you can get courses on discount. So we're only talking about a couple $100, and you can get a dozen or 2 dozen courses. So it's not a huge investment, but find out what all of them do. Pick and choose and stitch together your own system, but try to use the very best practices from everyone else who's already been successful. And certainly, if you see 2 or 3 or 4 people all telling you, don't do this thing, everybody makes this mistake, don't do this, pretty much you know not to do that thing. A big problem a lot of trainers make when they go into the online world from the offline world is they want to have their first video be 10 minutes long and give an overview for the course and tell people about what they're going to learn and welcome them and point out where the bathroom is. All a complete bore to online students. People will instantly click away and never try you again. So what you could do in the real world simply doesn't work in the online world. Keep that in mind. And if I can help you in any other way, let me know. I do see we have a number of evangelists and pastors with us today. Happy to have you, but I do want to stress we are not pushing any particular political party, religion, or stance on God here in this show. So I have friends and clients and colleagues all across the spectrum from devout of particular religions all the way to secular humanist and atheist. So I'm here not judging you, and I don't want you to judge me. What I am here for is to help you build the habits you need to lead the kind of life you want, to build successful habits that you can be proud of, that will lead you to a fulfilled life. You don't need me to tell you how to believe in religion or what political party to vote for. You don't need me for that. My unique strength, I believe, is my insights on how to influence human behavior, specifically your behavior and my behavior, in a way that's simple, fast, easy to help you get better results. I want to say a special hello again. Our friends on Instagram came back. Apologies. Instagram algorithm automatically ends a live stream after 1 hour. So I didn't get to say goodbye to you. Fortune, glad you're back. Anik Marka has joined us. And Sai has written again. You said, I made your day. That's fantastic. You are my inspiration, sir. And could you give me 2 to 3 tips on creating content for training? Well, one tip is, it's only like $9 today. If you go to udemy.com and type in Train the Trainer, you can buy my course today. It's on sale for $9. And I realize that sounds self-serving, but there's 30 hours of tips in that. You can get 30 hours on how to be a trainer for $9. I do think that is a pretty good deal. The biggest tip of all, I've covered them. It's really, you've got to consume more and know everything that is out in your field so you can add to it. It's very hard to come up with new ideas if you don't even know what the old ideas are in your field. The second thing is you've got to create. I'll add a third thing to it to help distinguish you. The third tip is you have to learn how to be comfortable speaking on video if you want to be a successful trainer in the 2020s. Why do I say that? Well, right now, if you go to habits or personal transformation on Amazon, you will find roughly 50,000 books on either one of those topics. And Amazon is the #1 online book seller in the world. So between those, if you want to write a book on habits or personal development, you got to compete with basically 100,000 books, 100,000 authors. I don't know about you, Si. I don't really want to compete with 100,000 other people. It's pretty hard. How do you even claw your way to forget being on the first page, the 10th page, when there's that much competition? However, if you go to the #1 platform in the world in terms of audience, users, consumers, money, and the commerce exchange for online courses, that would be the platform udemy.com. That's letter udemy.com, and I don't own any part of them. And if you type in habits, for example, you'll find fewer than 200 courses. If you type in personal transformation, you'll find, or personal development, you'll find fewer than 200 courses. So let me ask you, where would you rather compete? Against 100,000 people or against 180 people? I don't know about you, I would much rather compete against 180 people. There have been countless times when I've entered a new niche in the online training world, and there was so little competition, and I did a great job of speaking and condensing information and ideas. I was able to create a bestseller, even in niches outside my core areas of expertise. There's less competition. People are scared of this thing. They're scared of this video camera. People take the attitude of, oh, what if people don't like me? I don't like my voice, and oh, my hair's not perfect, and I'm getting jowls. Guess what? Nobody cares. Nobody cares what I look like. I already know I look better than Dr. Phil, and those of you outside the United States, he is the top-rated daily TV talk show host, other than Judge Judy. He's bald, got beady little eyes, and a weird mustache. Nobody cares what he looks like. So that's the big problem so many trainers have, is they tell themselves, well, I'm okay in the classroom with 5 people, but I can't really, I'm not the face for the video. Nonsense. If you want long-term career stability, I highly recommend you think of yourself as your own company. Now, you may be working in a big corporation or big government and be perfectly happy right now, but let me tell you, long run, you don't know what's going to happen. In economic downturns, the first people to be fired, trainers in a lot of companies. So you could be, I speak from experience, believe me. So you need to be prepared to be on your own. And the ultimate calling card, if you're a trainer, is going to be your content. And it could be, in the past, it was more things like this. I mean, here's a book I wrote almost 20 years ago. This was a little self-published book, Media Training A to Z. And it's sold many thousands of copies, but that's not where I made money. I made money by getting media training clients from having a book. And that was back when it was a lot harder to have a book. And I've done half a dozen books. This was a more traditional publisher. This was a USA Today #1 best-selling book. This is now about 12 years old, and a hardback book. So books can do it, but these days I recommend focus on making online courses. It's just so much easier. It's so much faster. You can monetize it quickly, and you'll be down the road toward an excellent career in training. So, Cy, thank you so much for your questions and comments. I hope you found that helpful. Fortune Tribes writes in and says, yeah, Udemy course creation. Definitely do that. Fortune says, wow, you can teach acting. Fortune, I guess you mean that as a compliment. I'm a horrible actor. I see what I do is exactly the opposite of acting. What actors do is they have to take someone else's script, memorize it, have it come out of their mouth in a way that doesn't sound memorized. That is a unique skill. It's a skill I have respect for because I can't do it. I remember once, it was 6 or 7 years ago, I got a call from a movie producer for a small part. This was in a movie starring Justin Timberlake and Ben Affleck. I thought, okay, I'm going to be in with the big stars. And they were looking for someone to be an internet newscasters to do a story on the dangers, the rise of college kids doing internet gambling. And it was like 3 sentences they wanted me to say, and I was awful. I'm great at just talking, but remembering a script and having it come out in a way that isn't artificial, that's not my thing. I'm ashamed to say I did probably 15, 20 takes a day, every day for a week, online with the producer, recording it, sending it to them. And in the end, they all got put on the cutting room floor, and they hired former NBC News anchor John Siegenthaler to do that part of the movie. The movie got horrible reviews. Nobody ever saw it after a week, so it wasn't that big of a lost opportunity. Here's why I think this is important and why I go into this detail. Acting is hard. For most people, if you're in business, if you're a consultant, a trainer, an entrepreneur, a software executive, you don't need to learn how to act. You need to just speak. You just need to speak to people in a conversational way about what you do, what you're excited about, the ideas you can share with them that will help them. All of us do that all the time when we're sitting down talking to one person we're already comfortable with. The skill I have is I can do the same thing that all of you can do talking to your best friend. I can do it talking to a camera, and that feels weird and strange for most people, unless you've been through training, and that is what I do. So, but Fortune, thank you so much for that comment. And Marceau, I just saw something flash up on the screen, but I think I missed what you were doing. If you want to put that again, or if I slighted or missed anyone on Facebook or YouTube, let me know.
That was just me doing something in OBS.
Okay, great. Okay, Cy also writes, how did you start your own training company, sir? And could you please share your story? Well, thanks for calling me sir. Very respectful. kind of makes me feel old, but I know you're saying that to be respectful. But certainly you don't have to. People can just call me TJ. I don't care if you're 7 years old or 70. Let's just be on a first name basis here. You may have missed the first hour, but part of what I did in the show today is kind of tell my story of how I got there. But I will go into a little more detail. And Reza, thanks for joining us. I see you're here with us now. How I got to be a trainer in the first place. When I was 12 years, hey, you asked for the story. When I was 12 years old, I was a very, very shy kid. I didn't say that much, and I had just gone to junior high school. They didn't have middle school back when I was 12 years old. So I was in the 7th grade, and this was the 70s. This was 1975. And there was what's called a 50s Day, a celebration of music and culture from the 1950s in the United States. I dressed up as a character, and he's based on what an actor portrayed, Henry Winkler. Henry Winkler is still around now, and he's in all kinds of shows. He was a character known as the Fonz on a show called Happy Days. And I was dressed up as the Fonz, and I had a lot more hair back then, and it was black, and I had it slicked back and a leather coat. And I won the Fonzie Look-alike contest. And the reward for winning that contest was the very next day, I got to do the newscast on my junior high school closed-circuit TV news. So there I was in front of a camera, not much different from this, at the principal's desk, delivering the news. And that was kind of my first taste of speaking to the media, being in front of people. Shortly thereafter, I developed a stronger interest in politics and ran for student council. A year later, I became the student council president for my whole school. Because of that, I frequently had to stand up in front of 1,200 students and 100 teachers at rallies and speak to the whole student body on a regular basis and announcements every day, that sort of thing. So I built a quick comfort level in speaking and had an interest in politics, started volunteering for political campaigns in high school, and shortly after that went to work in political campaigns in government, and shortly after that, hosting my own talk radio shows and TV shows. I did something very foolish at the time, and certainly in hindsight. I quit a good high-paying job as a spokesperson for a government agency and just started my own syndicated TV talk show and radio show. This was way back in the 1980s. And I didn't have enough experience under my belt from a business perspective. And I failed miserably out of the time of my life and was syndicated on every major TV station in the region of the United States, Florida, radio stations, and a lot of fun, made no money for 2 years, racked up debts. But I gained valuable experience. You'll be hearing more about that from time to time. I don't want to take up the whole show today just talking about myself. We do have some other comments and questions. Let's go over to Facebook now. Marcel, if you can pull that up, please. Okay, Peggy writes in, I'm taking your Train the Trainer course now. Peggy, thanks for doing that. And we had some inquiries. I forgot if it was on Facebook or on Instagram, but someone has asked us, I think it was Instagram. So Peggy, if you don't mind just posting, since I can't do it, I'm busy doing a show now. Peggy, if you don't mind just posting a link to the Train the Trainer course that you're in, and that way any of our friends on Instagram might be able to see that, and we'll try to spread that around. I don't want this show to seem like an infomercial. Obviously, we live in a capitalistic world. I have bills to pay, but this is not going to be a show that's just a thinly disguised infomercial where every 2 seconds, buy my course, buy my course, buy my course. I don't want to do it like that. I want 98% of this show to be about pure content helping you build stronger habits, better habits. But, that 2%, I do want to pay a few bills. So I will occasionally, I hope in an organic way, mention any products or services I have that might be valuable to people that address the needs mentioned. And I do have 144 online courses that deal with a wide range of personal development issues. Most of them do relate to public speaking, media training, crisis communications training, and many also deal very specifically with how to build stronger habits. Whether it's habits decluttering your home, whether it is habits on how to live a healthier life, how to manage your time more effectively, those are the courses that I teach. And Marcia, do we have any other comments there on Facebook?
There's nothing else.
And hello to a couple of other friends who've joined us today on TikTok. Very fun to see so many people from so many different platforms joining us. User 2772 has joined us. Oscar Lopez has joined us on TikTok. Okay, and we'll get to that in a moment. Also, Vid Moby Jr. has joined us and says hello on Instagram. I'm ashamed to say I've heard about Instagram. Everyone's been talking about it for 10 years. I was really late to Instagram. I think I started an account 10 years ago, did nothing, or 8 years ago, whenever it started, and really just started adding content, participating, communicating with people there about 2 months ago. So thank you for letting me in on such late notice. Let's go over to YouTube and talk to some of our friends today. Ridham's with us in India today. India, one of my favorite countries, and my apologies to the French and to the Italians, but my absolute favorite food in the entire world is Indian food. I probably eat it about 3 times a week now. Nico von Nijkerk writes in from Cape Town, South Africa. Have not yet been to Cape Town. Was in Johannesburg a year ago this week. Absolutely loved my experiences in South Africa and went to your big national park and tremendous safaris. The wildlife there, the natural beauty unsurpassed in South Africa. So happy they're joining us today from Cape Town. Also, I see Abhinav has written, I'm out of words when camera comes in front of me. Okay, Abhinav, you've hit a sweet spot for me. That's my bread and butter. That is music. Sorry to sound like I'm salivating and getting happy at your misery, but that's basically how I've made a living the last 30 years, is you are not alone. Most people get nervous when a camera is put in front of them because public speaking is the #1 fear most people have. And even if you're not tangibly afraid of public speaking, there's still adrenaline being pulsated through your body, and there is some level of nervousness. When a camera is on you, that is a type of public speaking, and in some ways it's much scarier for people because in theory anyone in the world could see. You could be seen by billions if it's camera and it's recording video and the video gets on the internet. So I understand why you're nervous and why you lose track of what you want to say, why the words don't come. The key is you have to practice on camera, and these days you can practice just with your cell phone. When I did my first media training, it was way back in 1984. I was in college. I was an intern for a congressional candidate in Charlotte, North Carolina. And we did a media training preparing for a televised debate. So we had to hire a local TV reporter who kind of brought in this big, heavy camera, and 60 pounds and a big tripod. It was time-consuming, expensive, laborious. So for many years, people had a good excuse not to do media training, or they had to hire me, and I would bring a big VHS camera, and it was awkward and clunky and bulky. These days, you don't have that excuse. Just use your cell phone. Practice speaking on a cell phone. So if you're going to give a speech and there's a camera, or you're doing a media interview and there's a camera, the #1 habit you need to get into is practicing in advance alone. Use your cell phone. Record yourself, look at it, figure out what do you like, what do you not like. Keep doing it until you are happy. That is the #1 tip I have for you if you want to get over that stage fright. Because as human beings, we are programmed to fear public speaking. This is a type of fear. Your body's saying, run, there's danger. So your brain stops working. And that's why you can't recall information. But if you keep practicing, then it becomes as ordinary and as normal as leaving a voicemail for your best friend. I realize that reference may sound dated to those of you under 30 because you don't like to leave voicemails. But talking to your best friend in person. It's just talking. The reason I'm coming across to you in a way I hope you find articulate and interesting is there's nothing I'm doing now when I'm talking to you that's different than if we were just at a restaurant tonight having a conversation at the bar. I'm just talking. If you want to speed up your process, again, I told you I was not going to turn this into an infomercial nonstop, but I do have the #1 online media training course in the world to help you come across your very best on camera. So if you want to do it as quickly as possible for under $10, there is a sale going on right now at Udemy, udemy.com, for how to speak more effectively on camera. And if you just type my name in media training, you'll see a number of courses. They'll all solve your problem because that is an extremely easy problem to solve. Let's go to YouTube. We have our Abhinav writes again. You get conscious when people stare at me and then it gets horrible. Again, completely normal. Evolutionary biologists believe we as human beings are programmed this way to save our lives because in prehistoric days, if you're in the savannah, if you are away from the tribe and you're standing up, you're now visible to every lion, tiger, bear, cougar, any animal, any predator can see you alone and come eat you. So human beings, animals, are programmed to stay a part of the herd. So when you're giving a speech, you feel alone. You feel like all eyes are on you, to use your words. And that's what makes us feel vulnerable because we feel like, ooh, we could be eaten. The problem is, though, simply running away, which is a great defense if you're in the middle of the savannah or a jungle, doesn't work in the modern business world or adult world in corporations or government. Because if you just run away, you make a horrible impression, you may get fired. So you've got to learn how to cope with it. The way to do it is to practice repeatedly until you like what you see and that you know you come across your very best. I'm not nervous right now, in part because I already know exactly how I'm coming across. Now, doesn't mean I'm perfect. I've made plenty of mistakes today already. Doesn't mean I look perfect. Doesn't mean my hairstyle is perfect. But what it does mean is I'm comfortable knowing this is the best I can come across. This is how I want to come across. This is the way I want to come across. And I know that even though some of you might not like me, some of you may be thinking, I hate that TJ moves his hands. Tough. This is exactly the way I want to move my hands. So it's not that I'm convinced everybody loves me, but I am convinced that this is the way I want to come across. It is because everything I'm saying to you, for the most part, I've seen myself say this on video other times, or at least similar things to it. So I already know how I'm coming across. And that's what reduces the stress. Speaking of stress, some people, when they're feeling stress, chew their nails. And that leads to the next story. This coming out of Great Britain, something called the Daily Gaming World. This is a story about Meghan Markle. Now, folks, I try not to do cheesy pop culture news here much, but I just couldn't resist. She is in the news so much these days. You may have heard she and her husband are trying to get out of the royal family and yet still be in it and spend half their time in America. That's not what I'm talking about here today. There's a story around, and she has allegedly said that there is one unladylike habit that she herself is trying to get rid of, and it's chewing her nails, biting her nails. Now, I've had plenty of bad habits in the past, and my wife could probably tell you I still have plenty of bad habits, but that is not a habit that I've had of really chewing my nails. I know people who've had. Here's what I would do if someone came to me with that problem. I would create a Selfie Speak program. I would have them pull out their cell phone and start off a recording that says, I have a healthy body. I love my body. I would never harm my body. I have a healthy body from the top of my head to the tips of my fingernails. I never put my fingernails in my mouth. I want my fingernails to look their absolute best at all times. I only trim my fingernails with fingernail clippers. I would just talk to myself in a conversational way and record it for a couple of minutes. That alone does nothing. But I'd record it and then I'd listen to it every day. Or after a day, it would do nothing. But if I listened to it every single day, and at the end of each day, I would have a little notation in my cell phone. Did I take proper care of my fingernails today? And I would have the day's date, and I would just put a Y for yes or an N for no. I would hold myself accountable every day, and it would take just a few seconds. It would take 1 second to hit click to listen to that audio. And then at the end of the day, it just takes a couple of seconds to read that entry of, did I take proper care of my nails today? And to put a Y for yes or an N for no. That's how I would handle that problem. How would you handle that problem? Have you ever had a problem with chewing your fingernails or biting your fingernails? Because it happens even to royalty, as we found out today from Meghan Markle. If you've had a problem with that, how did you fix that habit? I've certainly heard of people putting, a pepper-tasting fingernail polish on their nails. So if they put it in their mouth, it tasted horribly. So it gave them strong negative reinforcement. Negative reinforcements can be absolutely a wonderful way of getting you away from a bad habit. So let me know from you if you've done that at all. I see Darren Braca has joined us on TikTok. Thanks for joining us today. El Noana has joined us. Danny7676 has joined us on TikTok as well. By the way, let us know what countries and what cities you're coming from today on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and other platforms. I'd love to hear from you. We've had a great audience from all over the world today. We've heard from people from far-flung places, from India, Somalia, from France, and you name it. So happy to have such an international audience. There's a lot of tension in the world, political strife, but at some level, all human beings aspire to have daily habits that help them reach their goals, that help them reach their version of fulfillment. And in a time where there's so much strife in the media and everything is about dividing and telling people they're not in our tribe, they're no good, what I am hoping for in this show is a way of bringing people together. Now, we're purposely staying away from politics for that very reason. But I do hope that this can be one sort of safe area in your media diet where no one gets angry with each other. It doesn't mean we can't disagree from time to time, but this is an area where people of goodwill come together to talk about ways of leading even better lives, more fulfilled lives. Let's take a look on YouTube a moment and see what else has come up. Abnar writes, thanks for the advice, TJ. And in India, it's 1:04 a.m. Well, I really appreciate you staying up so late. And I thought it was, I thought you were 8.5 hours ahead. Now, India is an interesting situation in that they are a half hour different. Most time zones are by the hour, and India is typically a half an hour. I thought you were 8.5 hours ahead of us. So I've miscalculated somewhere. But I do appreciate you staying up this late and spending your precious Friday evening with us. By the way, if you have specific thoughts on a better time for this show, I can't guarantee you I'll change it, but I'm certainly open to feedback and will be reading and listening to your feedback. We are in the first full week of this show. If this were a Broadway show, we would say it's in preview. So we're looking especially closely at any suggestions you have on how to refine this, how to make it better, how to make it more effective, more interesting, more engaging. And if all of a sudden I'm getting hundreds and hundreds of emails a day from people saying, TJ, I love your show, but if you just held it 4 hours earlier each day, I'd watch every day and 10 of my friends would too. I'd consider that. I don't know if there's any one perfect time of day, but if you have any feedback on what one of our colleagues and members of the community here wrote a few days ago, I think that they didn't particularly like the fireplace behind me, saying, TJ, we're here in the tropics. Fireplace is kind of hard to relate to. So I am here in New York, and it is cold. It was 25 degrees here last night, and our heat ran out. Don't ask me why our heat is back on, but a fireplace comes in handy, because this fireplace was keeping me warm for a couple of hours last night. It came in very, very handy. Although, in full disclosure, this is my fireplace, but it's a video of my fireplace. As I told some of you earlier this week, I'm in my TV studio in the first floor of my house. This is a video image of my great room upstairs. And it's just easier technically to do it all in a studio than setting up and taking down in my great room and dining room table every single day. Those of you watching on TikTok and Instagram, you have completely different angles. And that's why you do see a TV screen, whereas people watching on YouTube and Facebook, it's supposed to appear as though I'm just in a nice living room. So that is the difference. We may be getting you on the same platform too. Sai is writing again. Sai is from Hyderabad. I have to tell you, a lot of my friends are from Hyderabad. My neighbors across the street are from Hyderabad, and they are the absolute best cooks in the world. Every so often I go knock on their door and say, sure smells good. I love Southern Indian cooking. I really have a strong, strong preference for spicy food. And believe it or not, who says dreams never come true? My dreams do come true. My neighbors are very successful software executives, but they have recently just started a food truck that is going to be selling incredibly tasty South Indian food from the Hyderabad region here in New York. And I'm going to be their number one customer every single day. I just hope it doesn't put my 35 pounds back on, because that is a bit of a problem. It's Hyderabadi, biryani, yes. I love biryani. That is the number one meal I get at my neighbor's house. I try to find an excuse to get over there at least once a week. It is an absolute feast. For those of you who are not as accustomed to Indian food, biryani is this incredibly intricate, interesting meal where there's a rice base, typically chicken, but it has, at least when it's done well, what seems like 100 different ingredients, all cooked from scratch, incredibly tasty. Not something that my wife and I want to start from scratch, because it's just too difficult at home, or we don't have the patience to do it. But I love eating it. But thanks so much for letting us know you're from Hyderabad. For some reason, I seem to have more online students on my Udemy courses from the southern Hyderabad, and also further to the west from you in southern India are my absolute most enthusiastic students in the world for my public speaking courses and media training courses on Udemy. And I'm actually hoping to go to southern India again at some point in the near future. I had the privilege of going to Bangalore and conducting trainings at the Infosys campus, a dozen or so years ago. And that was my third trip to India, but hope to get invited back. Let's switch over to, do we have anyone else on YouTube, Marceau, that we left out?
Abhinav one more time.
Abhinav says, TJ, whenever you are live, I will be there. Now that is the fan of the day. We got to figure out, Abhinav, you got to send me your email. I'm going to give you a present for that. I'm going to give you a book or a free pass to a course with comments like that. You know, everyone says that you shouldn't suck up to people and brown-nose people. Well, guess what? They're wrong. Every human being likes flattery. I'm certainly sensing that it is sincere. But when you can give someone praise where it doesn't seem like you're just saying it to be manipulative, it can come across as very effective, and people want to reciprocate, as I do right now. So drop me a line, Abhinav. I would love to hear from you. And you can always just communicate with me directly, tj@tjwalker.com. Ideally, a year from now, I'll be afraid to give out my email because we'll be getting 50,000 emails a day. But for right now, I'm not too big for my britches. So I will, in fact, share that with you and just give you, complete access. Plus, you can always reach out to me directly on the Facebook pages. You can message me there quite easily, or on YouTube as well. So again, thanks, Sai. Thanks for all the folks who have joined us today on TikTok. Poppy has joined us as well. So happy to see so many folks from around the world, so many different continents, all participating in this conversation today. Today is Friday. You may be like a lot of people, think, oh, great, I can stay up late, no work tomorrow, no school tomorrow, stay up late, sleep in late. Saturday, stay up late, party, sleep in late. Sunday, but then what happens Sunday night? You've got school the next morning, you've got work the next morning, you try to go to bed at 10 o'clock, and all of a sudden, you're just looking up. You can't fall asleep. What do you do? Just tossing and turning on Sunday night? There was some research done just recently. This is courtesy of ABC News about this specific problem of the difficulty of falling asleep on Sunday nights. If you're having trouble falling asleep on Sunday nights, you're not alone. So there's a whole study done on this. And what researchers found is it's a very common problem. People try to go to sleep Sunday night, they're feeling stressed, they can't fall asleep. The fact that they can't fall asleep is making them stressed. They're looking at the clock and realizing it's not that long until I have to wake up for work. There's a big Monday morning staff meeting. What do I do? Here's the big problem. If you're trying to go to bed at 9 o'clock on Sunday night, because you got to get up at 5 a.m. Monday morning, and you've got work or school facing you, the problem is if you stayed up late Saturday night and then you slept till 10 a.m. Sunday morning, it's now only been 11 hours since you woke up. Your body is simply not prepared to fall asleep after only being awake for 10 or for 11 hours. So the problem is not that you need a sleeping pill. In fact, I would argue that is the absolute worst thing you could ever do if you need sleep, is to take a sleeping pill. I'm not a physician, don't trust me, Google it. Google what the clinical research says from independent sources, unbiased sources about Tylenol, PM, any of the prescription drugs on sleeping pills. Worst thing you could do on a Sunday night. But it all gets back to your sleep pattern. The real problem for you and anyone else, if you can't get to sleep on Sunday night, is what you did Saturday night. The body needs regularity. The body likes habits. You might not want to, but the body wants to conform to certain habits. And if during the week you go to bed at one time and get up at a set time, and during the weekend you try to do everything completely different by 2, 3, 4 hours, messes up your body. Your body does not have to cooperate. In fact, it can rebel, and for many of you, it will rebel on a Sunday evening. If you want to be able to fall asleep at 9 o'clock on Sunday evening, I hate to tell you, this makes me sound like a killjoy. It does not make me sound like the fun guy at the party, but if you really want to go to bed at 9 o'clock on Sunday night, you need to go to bed at 9 o'clock Saturday night. I realize, especially if you're not an old guy like me and you're out partying, it's pretty hard to go to bed at 9 o'clock at night and maintain an active social life. Those are the breaks. The only other option, and I do not recommend this, is you're going to somehow have to wake yourself up earlier Sunday morning so that there's at least a 12-hour lag period between when you got up and when you're falling asleep. That's still going to make you sleep deprived, but at least you'll be tired enough to fall asleep. The healthiest practice is to go to bed at the same time 7 nights a week. I Realize it's not always practical, but you know what? You get to decide what you want to do with your life. I can't decide, but don't let your friends or family decide either. If you decide it's healthiest for you to go to bed at 10 o'clock every night, even though your friends and family are used to you always staying up till 11:30 watching a couple more movies, you can decide you're going to go to bed at 10 o'clock every night because you want to be well rested, because you want to have the habit of getting up well rested without using an alarm clock. Don't even get me started on alarm clocks. I think they're the worst thing ever invented for people who care about health. So no, setting your alarm clock an hour earlier to go to the gym is not a good practice and is not a healthy thing to do. But I've already pontificated on that this week. We'll address that in another issue, another time next week. I'm TJ Walker. This is the Habit Influencer. We call it Habit Influencer not because I'm the all-knowing guru here to tell you do this, do that. We call it the Habit Influencer because together as a community, we're trying to help each other influence our own habits. When people come to one of my online courses, I tell them, you could just listen to the audio of me doing the Selfie Speak program, but I don't recommend it. I recommend that you record your own Selfie Speak program with your own voice. Much more powerful to hear your own voice telling you in your own name how you want your life to be, the habits you want. That is what I think is most effective. Special hello to some of our friends just joining us on Instagram. We have Marte Jr. has just joined. Marte, thanks so much for joining us. Amir has also joined us. Amir Shurkat has joined us. By the way, let us know what cities, what countries you're in. Always fun to know where people are tuning in from today. I see Celtic Pure is joined us on TikTok, as well as Abishudi has joined us. And I live here in the United States, so people are used to hearing about the Boston Celtics, but certainly in Europe, people talk about the Celtic peoples. So don't mean to offend you by giving a U.S. bias pronunciation of your name there. Do you wear a fitness tracker? Do you wear anything that is trying to change your behavior in an electronic version? Reason I ask is there is the Consumer Electronics Show, giant trade show, biggest trade show in the world going on now in Las Vegas. There are new gadgets being introduced all the time. One caught my attention. It analyzes your face and tells you what the dark spots and wrinkles mean. I don't know if I completely buy into that, but I wanted to share with you a little other research that's come out recently. This is from the Pew Research Center, a fairly reputable organization, and they claim that 1 in 5 Americans regularly use a fitness tracker or a smartwatch of some kind. So it's up to 20%. And while the number rises to 31% if they live in a household where income exceeds $75,000 per year. For people who make less than $30,000 a year, it's only 12%. And they go in and talk about the various ones. I have to tell you, I am biased. I do use the Apple Watch. It's not one of their best-selling products. The only reason I got this watch is I like to know exactly how many steps I've taken. I'm a bit disappointed with myself. It is 2:50 in the afternoon Eastern Time. I've done 8,899 steps. We'll round it off there. One step, 8,900 steps. That's 4.46 miles. My goal for myself is to do 12,500 steps per day. The average American only does 5,000 steps per day. Many doctors recommend doing 10,000. Why do I do 12,500? I just made it up. I figured if the average American is supposed to do 10,000, I've looked around at what the average American looks like. I don't want to look like that, or even a little bit better. So that's why I just kind of arbitrarily decided I want to do another 25% beyond what's recommended. And you know what I found? This thing really helps, because if it's near the end of the day and I'm a little short, I'll walk all over the house or out, around the perimeter of my house a couple times, get a few thousand extra steps in. To me, it's really helpful. Caveat time. I have seen other research to suggest that the vast majority of people who use trackers to track their steps, other data about their health, don't use it in any meaningful way to increase their activity. So this will not make you walk more steps. This is simply a tool. If you've already decided that you have a habit that you want to walk more, this can give you good guidance. But this is not what makes me walk 12,500 steps each day. What makes me walk, I believe, is I've recorded an audio of myself, surprise, surprise, telling myself, TJ, you are healthy. Part of what makes you healthy is you walk at least 12,500 steps every single day. I listen to an audio telling myself that I do that every day. I also have a checklist where every single day I go to that and I put either a yes or a no. And I hate it if I have to put a no next to that item. And if it's a day of traveling, I'll go out of my way in airports to walk around rather than just sitting around reading a magazine, which is what most people do when they've got a 2-hour wait at an airport. I'll walk around specifically trying to appease the tracker, which is really about appeasing myself. I want to get those steps in. But I'm interested in hearing from you. Number one, do you use a tracker? Do you use, and there are $10 odometers. You don't need a fancy watch, although these are a lot less expensive than traditional high-end watches. Do you use an Apple Watch? Do you use another brand? I would love to hear from you. And more important, do you think it plays a role in you having a healthy habit? I am convinced I am healthier by using this tool to let me know that I've reached my goal. It didn't help me set the goal. It doesn't motivate me to take the steps I need to reach that goal, but it's an important tool that enables me to reach the goal. I want to know from you, do you use any electronic trackers? And in a moment I'll tell you about my ultimate fantasy tracker, but first let's go to our friends on YouTube. Marceau, who do we have here? I see that Clinton Tao has written, "Hi TJ, I ate 2 cookies yesterday and my digital well-being app crashed on phone. Coincidence? Maybe." I don't know. I had a Fitbit, I believe, at one point, liked it to monitor my steps, hopped in a pool, this was 8 years ago, instantly fried it. I think I broke a couple that way. Then I bought a couple of very expensive odometers that I just clipped on me, they fell off, broke. Then I was using my smartphone, because your smartphone does, if you have an Apple phone at least, it will track your steps. The problem there was I was playing tennis and other sports and I had to have my cell phone in the pocket. Well, be middle of a point on my court and all of a sudden the phone splatters out on the hard court. I'm worried about breaking it. That didn't seem practical at all. So that's the only reason I bought the Apple Watch, and it turns out I love it because I love using the stopwatch function. I can instantly see who's calling, and I don't have my ringer on anymore. I don't have to hear cell phones, and I simply hit delete or go to voicemail if it's not a call I'm expecting, and I know the person. So I sound like an Apple spokesperson or evangelist. I'm not. They pay me no compensation, but I love the watch. In fact, I love it so much I sold, and probably at 90% off of what I paid for it, a very expensive Swiss watch, an IWC, not that long ago, because I hadn't worn it in 5 years, because I love the versatility of this. Now, I do want to tell you about my ultimate dream when it comes to tracking devices. And we are coming up on the end of the hour. Oh, and my friends at Instagram, we are going to automatically be shut off in just a moment. So if I don't get to say goodbye to you, I hope you have a wonderful weekend. My ultimate dream of a tracker is one that will tell you how many calories you've consumed in a day. So you can see at any one point. So if you decide you want to be your ideal weight, you plug in your height and it's mathematically going to tell you how many calories you need. You could then program, whether it is your watch or some other sensor, how many calories you need to reach your ideal weight. You could then have, again, this is in development. No one's really doing this in a way that's real that I know of. But if you had something that automatically told you how many calories you had, you could then calibrate things so that you get perhaps a horrible electric shock if you go over the calories you need for maintenance of your body. And that would be, or at least a strong vibration. To me, that would be the ultimate tracker that could cure, or at least go a long way towards solving the worldwide epidemic of obesity, because so many of us are simply eating too many calories. I understand not everything is calories, but a lot of it is just simply human beings are eating 500, 1,000, 200, or 2,000 more calories per day than we need to maintain our proper body weight. We're coming up on the close of the hour. Special thank you and goodbye to Sai and Naja and all of our friends on Instagram today. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. We're off tomorrow and Sunday, but I'll be back here on Monday. Fortune, I hope you have a great weekend. And, oh, I'm sorry, Fortune, I missed your question about Steve Jobs, but I'll be sure to address that on Monday. If I forget, remind me early in the show. So thanks so much. See you next time. To all of our friends joining us on TikTok, thank you for your attention, and forgive me for looking away from you. I'm looking at the main camera. And for all of our friends around the globe joining us today and this first week, I want to thank you. It's been a fun, interesting first week, our maiden voyage on this show. I look forward to the next week and the week after, and I look forward to us growing as a community of people who care about empowering ourselves and empowering our friends, family, colleagues, co-workers to have stronger habits to lead more fulfilled lives. I'm TJ Walker. Thanks for joining me and the Habit Influencer. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.
This is a Chucky Beat production.